Hey guys, welcome back to Our Maine Homestead. While Eddie and the baby sleep and I've got a glass of wine in my hand, I wanted to chat with you guys about my home birth experience. So first I want to kind of address the fact that I'm not like a hippie granola chick or anything like that, because I think that there's kind of a stigma around home birth and that kind of stereotype, I guess. But not that there's anything wrong with being a hippie granola chick. I just don't mind taking shortcuts. I'm not opposed to modern medicine, Western medicine, vaccines, things like that. I just do prefer to do things the more natural way if possible. I'm also somebody who at 33 years of age now, am very, very confident in what I can handle and my ability to handle hard things, painful things, that sort of thing. So that's not necessarily the headspace that I was in, let's say 10 years ago. So as I've gotten older, as I've had more life experiences, I did become more confident and more interested in doing something like a home birth. So before even getting pregnant, Eddie and I had discussed home birth. This was many, many years ago, discussed home birth. And we finally were in a place where we were like, yeah, let's bring a baby into the world. This would be such a cool place to raise a baby. Maine is just so beautiful and we've got all this land and property and just this lifestyle. We thought this was just kind of perfect timing. So we had discussed, leading up to trying to conceive, that we wanted to explore a home birth option. And after I took my second positive home pregnancy test and went to the doctor to just get it confirmed through a blood test, since it was still pretty early, my hopes and dreams were a little bit crushed when I asked for recommendations or suggestions to investigate home birth in this area. And I thought that it would be something that would be pretty popular because of the remote area that we lived in. I mean, it's an hour and a half to the nearest hospital, so I figured that that was something that happened a lot around here. Well, come to find out, the clinic that I went to basically was like, we have no recommendations, no suggestions. We don't even know of anybody who does anything like that around here. And I was like, okay, fine. So I did my own Google searching. I couldn't really come up with anything, any names, anybody to contact to even discuss this. And so I was like, well, since we have our first kind of ultrasound appointment and everything at 8 weeks, I'm going to just ask our OBGYN down in Bangor, which is where we had to go to get those services done. Little chicks are pecking in the background. Since we had to go to Bangor to get those services done, I was like, well, I'll just ask somebody new and see if they have any recommendations. Unfortunately, they did not either. So my hopes and dreams of having a home birth were kind of crushed at that point. We were told that we could investigate using like the Amish midwife, since there are a lot of Amish families and communities around us. But that's not something that I felt super comfortable with, and I can't really explain why. Maybe it just has to do with like access to technology, that being kind of a close-knit community, and I didn't even know if they would work with like English people, and just stuff like that. So that's not something that I was really gung-ho about and never really wanted to investigate or go into further. Now Olivia's making some noise outside. Yeah, at that point, my hopes and dreams, like I said, were kind of crushed, and we basically had just resolved to the fact that we were going to be doing a hospital birth. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go into this with a positive, like, natural attitude. I am flexible, so I mean, it's not like I was too distraught about this, but I was just really kind of hoping to do the home birth route. But I was like, well, I'm going to learn about what all my options are for a hospital birth and having it be as natural and like calm, cool, and collected as possible. The clinic that we were going to in Bangor to do all of our ultrasounds and prenatal visits and everything like that, they did have OBGYNs and a midwife. So we discussed doing a lot of natural kind of things with the midwife, just to see what those options were. And luckily there were plenty of options. And I wanted to basically My goal was just to basically avoid all unnecessary like procedures or medications or things like that. So if I didn't have to have an epidural, I didn't want to do that. If I didn't have to be induced, I didn't want to do that. If I didn't have to have a C-section, I didn't want to do that. Of course, I was open to all of those things if they were medically necessary for like my safety or the safety of my baby or something like that. So as we got further and further into our prenatal visits, something that became a regular topic of conversation was that Emery was small for gestational age, and so she was just measuring smaller than the average Maine baby. And so we weren't very concerned about that because I felt good. I felt very positive about this pregnancy. And so that's not something that Eddie and I were very concerned about, but it seemed to be a big concern for the doctors and the midwife at the practice that we were going to. Another thing to note was that one of the reasons, I guess, that they were a little bit more concerned about her being small for gestational age was the fact that I was technically like hypothyroid during pregnancy. Now, my thyroid levels on all my blood work were in the normal ranges, but for pregnancy, they were on the lower side. So I was taking some thyroid medication, a thyroid supplement, and that's one thing that they were kind of thinking about as they were looking at her size and weight and how she was growing. Another thing that they kept an eye on was her the umbilical cord flow. So they wanted to make sure that she was getting plenty of nourishment and nutrition from me, and that we didn't have anything where the umbilical cord flow was slowing down, stopping, or potentially even reversing. If it was something that was going to stop or reverse flow or anything like that, then that would be a medical emergency where we had to deliver as soon as possible. So that was something that we were taking into consideration, but again, every time I went in to do an ultrasound or anything, cord flow was perfect. It was great, so I wasn't having any concerns about it, even though the doctors and the midwife seemed to be getting more and more like amped up about it during each of our visits. Chickens, hold it down. Now, randomly, when Eddie was off doing a visit to one of our local Amish friends, whose wife happened to be pregnant at the same time, almost about as far along as I was, which might have been around 6 months or so, I think. She actually told us that they don't really use the Amish midwife, who is located a little bit further away. They actually use an English, quote unquote, an English doctor that's actually just down the road from us and where we live at. And so that's where her practice is. And so she was like, you guys should get in touch with her if that's something that you guys are interested in doing. And we were like, yes. So that is when we just happened to discover that there is a local home birth doctor here in our area, and so we decided to set up an appointment to go have a meet and greet with her and just see if home birth would be a good fit and good option for us. So when we went in to go see Dr. Fuchs, she just immediately put us at ease. We were so comfortable with her just right off the bat, and it just ended up being such a perfect kind of match. We had a lot of the same goals and thoughts and just beliefs as far as pregnancy and delivery goes. And so after discussing how things work, how this whole thing works, what the options are, we decided that home birth, we were going to pursue that again. And so we immediately had our first appointment with her, and I got checked out, and I had all of my records from the clinic down in Bangor just copied, and I got those to her as soon as possible so that she could just kind of read up on everything that had been going on up to this point in my pregnancy. So even though I was now seeing Dr. Fuchs for all of our home birth visits, I did still kind of double up my appointments and still ended up going down to Bangor to do a lot of the visits and ultrasounds with them, just because I didn't want to cut off that relationship completely in the event that we might need to do a plan B and end up doing a hospital birth with one of the OBs or the midwife at that practice. Safe to say I didn't want to burn any bridges. So everything was going great at both my appointments with Dr. Fuchs, our home birth doctor, and the doctors and midwife down in Bangor. Everything was going great. Things were trucking along. Everything was normal. I was having a normal, healthy pregnancy, aside from what Bangor kept seeming like they were really concerned about, which was Emery being small for gestational age. Dr. Fuchs, on the other hand, was not concerned about it at all. We were measuring on track, and that was something that they actually weren't doing down in Bangor, was doing the measurement where they measure from my pubic bone to the top of my uterus. And so everything was lining up as far as Dr. Fuchs was concerned, so she didn't have any worries or concerns about Emery's size at that point. But down in Bangor, that was something that they just kept, like, it almost seemed like they wanted to kind of scare me about it. And so I think Eddie and I both kind of decided that as each appointment went on and on and on, we were feeling less comfortable with the doctors down in Bangor, and more comfortable with Dr. Fuchs and what she had to say about everything. So we started kind of weaning away from Bangor and really just relying on what Dr. Fuchs was saying about the pregnancy. So when I went into Bangor for my 36-week appointment, they, for some reason, started really pushing for induction, and that was not something that I was willing to do unless it was medically necessary, of course. We were having some reverse cord flow or something like that. My blood pressure, I know that there's a lot of different reasons why people need to medically, for their safety, be induced, but that's not something I was willing to do just because. So at that point, that was really the turning point where Eddie and I were like, okay, I think we're going to really back off from them and just start exclusively seeing Dr. Fuchs, because that just didn't make sense to us why anybody would be pushing to induce a baby that, or induce a delivery for a baby that just seemed to be a little bit smaller than average. Otherwise, all the ultrasounds were showing completely perfect numbers and stats and everything like that. So there was really no reason for concern as far as Eddie and I were concerned, and as far as Dr. Fuchs was concerned. With that being said, I still did pack a hospital bag. I still called and pre-registered for labor and delivery at the hospital down in Bangor, and I still did all the steps necessary to keep that relationship open, just in case we had to go to Plan B and use that option. And it just so happened that at 37 weeks and 2 days, so we were 2 days past full term, I actually had my water break naturally at home, and my water broke at about 7:45 p.m. On a Sunday, and I basically had just squatted down to get Olivia out of her kennel and take her outside to go to the bathroom, and my water broke all over the floor. So I was like, oh my gosh, things are happening. So Eddie woke up and I was like, hey, my water just broke. And so we were trying not to like freak out or anything. This was my first baby. We didn't really freak out at all, so just want to put that out there. We were still calm, cool, and collected about it. And I wasn't really having like any contractions or anything like that just yet. It just kind of leaking some fluid was the only real symptom that I had. So I texted Dr. Fuchs and I said, hey, my water just broke. At this point, we were 3 weeks early as far as my due date was concerned, so she wasn't really checking her phone and didn't actually text me back until about midnight, and she was like, oh wow, how exciting. I wasn't expecting this, so I didn't have my phone by my side, and so that's why I was texting you back later. And I was like, no problem. So on Monday, woke up, I was having some contractions every now and then. They were probably spaced like a few hours apart, but I was timing them on an app on my phone, so I was keeping track of all my contractions and their intensity, which was basically zilch at that point. And so Dr. Fuchs just said, hey, unless things progress really fast today, let's make an appointment for you to come in this afternoon, and I'm going to check you and just be sure that we are actually going to be doing this. And so the day went very calmly. I think Eddie and I went and plowed some snow on the driveway. We just kind of did our normal thing, stacking firewood, that sort of stuff, just kind of taking it easy. And so that afternoon, Monday afternoon, about 3 o'clock I think it was, I went in for an appointment. So she confirmed that yes, we were in early labor and that things would be progressing and that we might even have a baby Monday night or early Tuesday morning. So we were really excited. But she told us just to go home, do our normal routine, eat whatever I wanted to eat, drink whatever I wanted to drink, try to go to bed early because I was probably going to need to really stock up on some sleep since I was probably going to be in for a long night. And so that's what we did. We actually went to the grocery store, picked up a few like goodies and snacks, and went home and just, you know, did our normal thing where we cooked a pizza for dinner, watched some TV, went to bed early, which is normal for us. And then probably at about midnight I woke up just because my contractions were becoming more intense, and so I wasn't going to be able to sleep through them from this point going forward. So about 2 o'clock in the morning I texted Dr. Fuchs and said, okay, we're about 5 minutes apart, things are pretty intense, so you're more than welcome to head on out whenever you want to. And so at 2 o'clock in the morning she answered me right back. Her and her assistant came out with their just 2 plastic tubs, little storage container tubs of goodies, and they got set up and settled in for another few hours of, you know, hanging out. And so I just kind of laid there and did my thing, and Eddie and Dr. Fuchs and her assistant, they just all kind of chit-chatted and helped me out where I was needed, or, you know, where I needed it. And at 8:50 in the morning, Emery was born. So I actively pushed for about 15 minutes, and it was just instant pain relief whenever she was born. So that was just perfect. So I do have actually a few videos that Eddie shot the day that she was born, and so I'm going to go ahead and share those with you guys right now.
She's out?
Nope.
Seems unreal, doesn't it?
Yes.
All of a sudden it happened.
I told him earlier before you guys even got here, I said, even with these like contractions that are getting a little bit more intense or whatever, I was like, it still doesn't feel real that we're about to like have a baby.
You started pushing real serious at 25 till. So 15 minutes only you're pushing. That's pretty seriously wonderful. We want to make you all clean. Yeah, you have so much goo all around. The other thing I look at is the ears are real floppy. That's part of being young too. You're right in line with your due date.
I did make a very detailed blog post about all of the events leading up to Emery's birth, and so I put that on my blog, and I'm going to put a link in the description below, so if you guys want to check that out, you can get a lot more information about what actually transpired between my water breaking and Emery being born. So there's actually so many things that I just really loved about having a home birth versus a hospital birth. I have a lot of preconceived notions about how a hospital birth would have gone compared to how my home birth did go. Granted, I have never done a hospital birth before, so I don't have any experience in that, but like I said, kind of my preconceived notions about it, and just what I've heard from other moms who have had hospital births, I just feel like for me, this was definitely the best fit. I didn't have anybody monitoring me constantly, wanting to check my cervix constantly, or just kind of bugging me, waking me up when I was trying to rest in between contractions, things like that, or having any machines that were beeping and going crazy, you know, right by my ear. So I just felt like it was a lot more peace and quiet, and that's something that was very important to me going into home birth. Was just I wanted to have very low stress, a lot of peace and quiet, and just kind of hanging out and just being normal. I didn't want it to be a big to-do. Another thing was just that I was able to move around as I wanted to. So if I wanted to lay down, I could. If I wanted to sit up, I could. If I wanted to walk around or go to the bathroom or do anything like that, I could. And there was, you know, a lot of encouragement to do things like that, to get into positions that were more comfortable. And from what I know about some people's hospital births, they're basically on bed arrest. So not house arrest, bed arrest. So they're not able to get up to go to the bathroom. They're not able to kind of squat or move around or get into different positions that might be a little bit more comfortable or help them get through some of the more intense and painful contractions. Another thing that I really loved that Dr. Fuchs encouraged me to do was to eat and drink whatever I felt like doing. So up to the more intense contractions, I was eating normally, but after contractions started to get more intense, I wasn't really interested in food, but I was drinking water. I did have some Gatorade just to help, help get some electrolytes into my body so that I wasn't working on basically 0 calories and, burning the candle at both ends, I suppose. I did have episodes of vomiting because my contractions were so intense, and so it was really nice to be able to have a few sips of water or to get a little bit of Gatorade in my mouth. Number one, to help with the taste, to just help kind of settle my stomach a little bit, and because my mouth was just so dry because I was getting dehydrated as I was progressing. And again, I loved the fact that it just felt very intimate and very special because it was just kind of like my personal space and somewhere where I felt really, really comfortable. And I loved the fact that nobody was trying to push unnecessary medications or trying to push unnecessary procedures on me during one of the more like tiring, exhausting times of my life. No signs were pointing to anything being medically necessary for my safety or Emery's safety. It was just really nice to know that somebody wasn't going to be like, oh, you sure you don't want that epidural now? Because then I might have changed my mind. It was a weak moment, but yeah, I was just really happy that nobody was trying to push things onto me that I didn't necessarily want or need. And probably my most favorite thing about home birth, in my opinion, my very humble personal opinion, is that I didn't have to pack up and take a newborn home just, 1 or 2 days after I gave birth. I was already here. I already have everything in place. I didn't have to pack anything up. I didn't have to pack her up. Didn't have to worry about the car seat for a while, that sort of thing. And so it was really nice to know that I didn't have to like pick up and go anywhere in 24 or 48 hours after giving birth. And then on top of that, again, I didn't have to get the car seat ready or anything like that because Dr. Fuchs actually did a few home visits for Emery's kind of day 1, week 1 checkups and that sort of thing. So that was really, really nice, that especially because it was in the dead of winter and there was a ton of snow on the ground, it was very cold outside, that I didn't have to try to wrangle a newborn and figure out how to do all of that and make it out into the world for appointments. I was able to just relax and be peaceful in my own home with my baby and my husband and my dogs and just take it easy and basically have anything that was necessary as far as checkups go come to me rather than me going to them.
So I wanted to share with you my home birth experience. I have 2 daughters besides Emery, and neither one were born in a home birth. They were both born in hospitals. So this was my first time, and it was truly an amazing experience. I'm sitting on my side of the bed right where Emery was born, where I sleep every night. So, it makes it pretty special that she was born right here, and that kind of gives you a kind of a closeness in a way. It sounds weird, I know, but till you experience it, I guess it's hard to understand that maybe. Here on the homestead, we do a lot of things. It may seem like we do a lot of things the hard way. We don't purposely seek out the hardest way to do things. Sometimes it might feel that way. But we try to do things more traditional. We try to stay and do things the natural way as much as possible. We're continuously working toward that goal all the time. Living in the modern world, we use a lot of modern conveniences even here. But we're working, not toward getting totally away from that, but toward getting away from those. So we're trying to live a more natural life. That could not be more evident than in a home birth. That's the way people have been born for thousands of years. No medications, doing things totally on your own, basically, which is the way we like to do things. And I'll just tell you, it was the most amazing experience of my life. We've done a lot of cool things together and separately, and this was by far the most incredible thing I've ever experienced. My wife is a big part of that. The experience of home birth and childbirth in general is incredible, but my wife is the most amazing person I've ever met. So I'll say that, and that's one reason it was so amazing. The other reason is just the fact that you're bringing another human into this world, and that's extremely special. Whatever world we're bringing them into, but you're still bringing them into this world, and you know, you're responsible for taking care of them, raising them, and making sure they're okay. So I obviously had the easy part in this whole situation. I was here for support and getting things the doctor or her assistant might need, and just making sure Francesca was okay. But just being there was an honor, and being able to help Francesca go through that, and then seeing what the two of us made, Emery, is, you know, it's beyond words. But I just wanted to share, you know, what it was like for me. And then, you know, it was a long night, and it wasn't easy. Not that I had the easy job, and I know that, but it definitely wasn't easy. And to see what Francesca was going through, and just to be there for her, was, you know, it was special. So through the process, once she got to a certain point and it was time for her to really start pushing, I was on the bed, obviously, with her, and trying to help her do crunches, basically, to you know, to really push. She was so exhausted. Her abdominal muscles by that time were just not able to do a whole lot on their own, and so I kind of helped get her up into a crunch position so she could push. And again, that's just part of the amazing experience and what it takes to have a child, you know, the real way, the natural way. Not taking anything away from people who have them, you know, in hospitals or that kind of thing. But through that process, I was helping hold her up. She's really pushing really hard, and she's exhausted and screaming and saying some other things every now and then. But at one point, she grabbed my thumb, which I had actually injured building the barn, and she actually grabbed it on accident, really pushing, and just, you know, clenched it in her fist in a way, and it hurt, obviously, but it was nothing like the pain she was going through. But she knew that she had hurt me. She was immediately more concerned about me than she was about the pain and the struggle she was going through in having this baby, which wasn't over yet. Just another kind of testament, I guess, is just another way that she's so incredible, and that she was able to do what she did was still the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Pretty impressive. And I will say, guys, if you get the opportunity, if your wife is willing, definitely go for it. I don't know that it's life-changing. It is, obviously, in changing your life and having a baby. But it is an incredible experience, and one you'll have with you for the rest of your life. So I definitely would recommend it, if that means anything.
So basically, in conclusion, if you're having a normal, healthy pregnancy like I did, then I could not recommend home birth enough. It was such a beautiful, great experience. If you are confident in what your body is capable of doing, and you want to be kind of, you know, more in tune with your body and be a little bit more natural about childbirth, which isn't something that happens a lot when you're dealing with Western medicine doctors and hospitals and things like that, then I could not suggest home birth enough. I think it's a really, really great option, especially if you're somebody like me who, again, is just really confident in themselves and what they can handle, and again, you're having like a normal, healthy pregnancy. I do want to point out that the entire time that we were discussing home birth, especially seriously at the end, when we were, you know, initially going to see Dr. Fuchs, and during the whole time we were seeing her up to the point of actually delivering Emery, we did have a plan B. We were very, very flexible in the fact that if anything was kind of concerning or worrying, or if at any point Eddie and I were more comfortable, or even Dr. Fuchs was more comfortable doing a hospital birth, that we were prepared and ready to go for that route if needed. And I just want you guys to know, especially if you're kind of considering home birth, or even if home birth isn't an option for you like we thought in the beginning of our pregnancy. If home birth isn't an option for you and you are still wanting to do a very natural birth in a hospital, you do have the power to decline anything that you want to decline. Any medications or procedures that you don't feel comfortable with or don't want, you are able to decline it. So don't fear that, and don't hesitate in doing that if that's what you want to do for your pregnancy. And if there is something in particular that you do want to pursue, don't give up on it. Keep pursuing it. The options are out there somewhere. You just might have to dig a little bit harder or research a little bit more. And the bottom line is that it's your pregnancy. Baby's starting to get fussy now, so if you guys liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Please leave any questions about home birth or my experience, or any questions that you have about something that you're trying to investigate in the comment section below, and I will get back to you ASAP. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Our Maine Homestead. Happy homesteading!